Morning, guys. As your professor may have said before, and if he hasn't, well, now you know. Next week, you're going to have your exam, your final exam for Excel. Now, taking into account that we're still missing one point that was or that is present in your topics for evaluation, I didn't want to just play the chance of asking you to go to YouTube and look it for yourselves. This is why I decided to do this really small tutorial and show you myself how to do whatever we're going to do. So, well, let's start with this. Today we're going to see what the if function is. If function, it's basically a way to show results or to display a result based on information that we may have in a different part of the Excel spreadsheet. What we're going to do is to write some numbers, some very quick ones, just to display something. We're going to write different numbers just to show you something, because something that we need to take into account is that Excel is going to understand the position of the numbers based on not only where we put them, but also on how we decide to display them. The aspect of the if function, it's really simple. We're going to start with the numbers that we have over here. The idea is that in these other spaces, we're going to display a word that reflects what we believe these numbers should be about. It's important that you remember that every single formula that we do begins with the equal symbol. After having the equal symbol, we're going to type in the word if. Now, if is going to open us the possibility of having this if function that we were talking about. We can have other if functions such as multiply if, sum if, and other formulas that we can have with the if, but we're going to use the very basic one, which is displaying a word. Now, sorry for the typo, we're going to begin with a logical test. Now, the logical test is this one that I'm showing in this moment. It's going to be the test that is going to determine the conditions that we're going to have with the number. Now, we're going to select our first number, and this number or logical test can be that this number is smaller than, bigger than, or even equal to the condition that we're going to say. In this moment, we're going to just say that it's bigger than. If our number is bigger than, and well, we're going to use 90. If our number is bigger to 90, we need to discuss what is going to be the value if true. If you can tell, this is a guide to tell you how to create this logical or how to create this function of f. As you may have seen, there is a comma that divides the aspect that says logical test and the aspect that says value if true. We need to add a comma every time that we finish doing one of the either test or values. Now we're going to start with that value if true, and for that one we're going to need to open quotations. We're going to have the word that we're going to display if the condition that we're talking about is actually true. We're going to name it great, and we're going to close the quotations. We're going to add a comma to continue with the false value. Now, as we know that NAR 70, neither most of the numbers that we have in this one will follow the condition of the number being greater than 90, we can divide our value into, or we can divide our false condition into even more conditions. We can open another if. If we open another if, we can start creating a new if function inside of that if function. It's important to take into account that we always have to use that first value. Why? Because we're going to drag this condition or this formula into other ones. If we're going to drag them into other ones, it's important that we always have the same number, so whenever it's dragged, it's going to change the numbers, but it's going to be always the same, that same number. Well, you will see it further on. Anyway, we're going to say that this one is going to be bigger than 80. If this one happens to be bigger than 80, remember the comma, we're going to name it fine. We're closing the quotations, we're having another comma, we're going to open a third if function. When opening this third if function, we're going to name, or we're going to have our value or our logical test, sorry. In this case, we're going to say that this one is going to be bigger than 70. If the case is that it's bigger than 70, we're going to just name it okay. Now we have our value if it's okay. We're going to continue. We're going to open one more if function. With that other if function, we're going to say that the number is going to be bigger than bigger than 60. We're going to continue with this one. We're going to name it as needs improvement. Going to close up the quotation, and finally we're going to do our last if function. This is just to close up the cycle, and we're going to do the one where the number goes below 60, meaning that if 60 is bigger than the number that we have over there, we're going to have a condition that takes place. In this case, we're going to say that it's not okay. Now, as you can tell, or as you have noticed, the different parentheses that we create are going to have a color. When we finish this up, we need to close all of the parentheses that we open, and Excel is going to change its color to tell us in which parentheses we're working on, or which parentheses we're actually closing. As soon as we hit enter, we're going to have something, as you can tell. Now, because this number is not bigger than 70, we're going to have the result needs improvement. As you can tell, that everything that goes below 70 but above 60, it's a needs improvement. Now, we can even add to this logical test this aspect, being that it's bigger or equal to 70, and transform it into okay. Every time that you want to include that number that you're talking about, if you want to have the number included, you need to have both symbols. And yes, as you can tell, you can combine symbols. Now, it will be really bad to just have to create this formula for each one of the numbers that we created, because, well, we're talking about 15 numbers and 15 formulas. It's not a fun thing. So what we're going to do is just to drag it. That's why it was important to have it, to have always the same number, because once we drag it, it's going to change it for us. But if we have different numbers, the formula will change the numbers as well, and what we're going to have is a big mistake. It's going to open, but it's going to look awful, and it's not going to work the way that we want it to. Well, basically, this is how you create this kind of formulas. I hope that you remember how to add conditional formatting, which is something that I'll encourage you to do, or that you will have to do with your practice. When talking about this one, you can use the equal to or the text that contains if what you're doing is, well, basically use it with text. Remember to mark them all when you're going to do the equal to or text that contains, and remember that whenever you're writing, you can just hit on OK, type in the word, or even select the cell, and in that regards, you're going to just have what you're exactly looking for. Now, take into account that not OK is being displayed. Why? because when we say text that contains, we're going to take everything that contains those two letters or that minimal aspect that we're talking to. If what you need is just only to display the OK without having the not OK highlighted, well, we're going to need to use OK. As you can tell, the not OK is not being highlighted, and that's pretty much a way to do it. Remember that you can always customize the color using the filling, using the border, or even just changing the font into one that you will like better. This is the one that I'm going to, or this is the one that I expect for exam, so try to take it into account. I believe that your professor is going to give you the practice that you need, and I hope that you're able to succeed on this one. You have my email. You know that you can always come during the week, and if you have any questions, any doubts, you can always refer to me by those different resources. Thank you guys, and I'll see you next class for your exam.